From Recorded Future News and PRX, this is Click Here. Scott Stratton Henderson was already a pretty busy guy.
The full-time job, the business, the full-time student, and of course, family, girlfriend, all of that. And now getting into, local politics.
That last part, politics, wasn't on his summer to-do list. He was supposed to be decompressing between semesters, running his side hustle, a claw machine business.
In the Toy Story, they have that scene where all of them go the claw, right? And they look at it. That's my line of work as far as business goes.
Growing up, Scott loved arcade games, that quick hit of luck and reward. And he realized renting these claw machines to local stores was a surprisingly manageable gig on a humble college student's budget with limited space.
My room is a bedroom, but it's also my mini warehouse, right?
Okay. So you have boxes of toys everywhere.
Yeah, that is exactly right. A little fulfillment center in my room.
Scott grew up in St. Charles, Missouri, a tidy old river town just outside of St. Louis. And one night, after one of his notoriously long days, his mom pulled him aside. She'd seen something on Facebook, something that was about to upend his entire summer.
So I had actually heard about it through my mother. She's in the Facebook groups with St. Charles. There's a few different major players as far as Facebook groups, though.
One of those groups was buzzing about something called Project Cumulus. It sounded whimsical, cloud, sky, lightness. But Project Cumulus wasn't about the weather. It referred to the cloud, the place where our documents, texts, and photos live. And then, on Facebook, Scott saw something that stopped him cold. A massive new data center project was about to land in his backyard.
A series of farm fields along Highway 370 in St. Charles could soon be transformed into a data center.
A 440-acre facility proposed right along the edge of St. Charles.
And don't get me wrong, I think St. Charles, we would love to be open for business, but it really has to be smart development, not reckless development.
That was the moment Scott realized he couldn't just stay on the sidelines. He needed to do something about it. He decided to launch a small revolution against the tech industry. I'm Dina Temple-Raston, and this is Click Here. We tell true stories about the people making and breaking our digital world. This week, the cloud. That far-off place storing our data isn't in the sky at all. It's all down here in buildings filled with humming servers that gobble up power and land. As artificial intelligence explodes, those buildings are multiplying, and they're starting to make their way into places like St. Charles. And in many cases, big tech isn't getting a warm welcome. It's getting a fight.
I'm only 20 years old, but I've not seen something that has rattled a community so much.
Stay with us. You're listening to Click Here. I'm Dina Temple-Raston. Scott Stratton Henderson was 20 when the data center fight came to town, and it seemed absurd on the face of it that he could take on big tech and win. He didn't have experience or connections. What he did have, though, was passion. Passion for the place that raised him, St. Charles, Missouri.
I wanted to make sure that this thing didn't go up in St. Charles because I have always thought of St. Charles as a place worth fighting for.
For fun and adventure close to home, visit St. Charles, Missouri.
A little cliche, but it's kind of what you'd see in the movies, I feel like kids still go outside and whatnot, ride their bikes, so all that sort of thing.
It's all waiting for you. Shop, dine, stay, play. Discover St. Charles, Missouri.
So the thought of a massive humming data center planted in the middle of that, it just felt wrong to Scott. Not just because it was coming to St. Charles, but where in St. Charles they wanted to put it.
The biggest controversy surrounding it, and the biggest reason why I had a problem with it, was the location.
The proposed site wasn't some industrial corridor. It sat beside family homes and small farms.
Literally, those people have to walk out every morning and see that massive thing right next to their house.
And then there was the noise.
You get noise and sound pollution. Data centers are known to have that kind of low humming sound.
The hum can travel for miles, a constant industrial heartbeat you can't shut off. And even if people could learn to live with that, what lay beneath the proposed site? That was impossible to ignore.
St. Charles, we already have a hell of an issue with our water and our wellhead district, which is where they were going to put this thing.
Their wellhead district. While other towns draw their water from reservoirs, St. Charles drinks from underground aquifers. And their aquifer, it had already been through a lot. A few years back, toxic chemicals from a nearby plant had seeped into the groundwater, forcing the city to shut down 6 of its 7 wells.
The city of St. Charles is taking action, conducting its own investigation into water contamination at the city's Elm Point well field.
The city handed out bottled water. There were lawsuits, and the contamination, it hasn't even been fully resolved yet. And now, residents were being asked to trust a new industrial project sitting directly on top of the wellhead wouldn't make things worse. And this one would come with a new kind of risk: diesel fuel.
One of the parts of this proposal was supposed to put 1 million gallons of diesel fuel as a backup power option on top of the wellhead as well. And St. Charles and Missouri in general is a huge tornado-prone area.
It also sits on a fault line. So if one of those generators were to rupture from a storm, a quake, or simple human error, those backup tanks could turn a precaution into a catastrophe.
You know, we're one natural disaster away from being a complete and utter contamination event happening.
There's also the matter of the water it takes just to run a data center. They can consume enormous amounts of water to cool their servers, roughly up to 5 million gallons a day. They also pull massive amounts of electricity from the grid. So when a data center comes to town, water tables shrink, power bills rise, carbon emissions spike. Scott's first instinct was Civics 101. Start a petition, knock on doors, talk to neighbors. But there wasn't time. The city council vote was just a few weeks away. So he went digital.
Started a petition against it with the Change.org petition.
It was a huge shot in the dark. St. Charles leans conservative, pro-business, not exactly a hotbed for grassroots battles against major development. But when Scott checked back a day later,
It multiplies and multiplies and multiplies. And then I think within the first 24 hours, it got over 500 signatures.
2 weeks later, more than 7,000.
So it all happened really quick.
It wasn't just a petition drive anymore, it was a movement. David versus Goliath, armed not with a slingshot, but a Change.org link. And the giant on the other side of the screen was about to take notice. Stay with us. From Recorded Future News, this is Click Here. When Scott put his petition online, the city council was weeks out from voting on the big question, to data center or not to data center. But in a sense, the people of St. Charles were already starting to cast their votes. Thousands signed that petition, and they started to gather offline too.
People reached out to me, and it kind of became a more organized effort with, business owners and community members and people really working hard to have more of a unified opposition to it as opposed to just a
a few ragtag group of citizens.
And as the opposition coalesced, the developers began showing up in town to make their own case.
We're going to end up becoming a significant part of the St. Charles and St. Louis economy, and it's exciting to start bringing that into the new digital economy.
And that right there, that's the main argument big tech brings to towns like this. They say they're offering progress.
This seems like an industry of the future. It seems like something that we would want to invest in. So let's do what we can to lure those data centers here.
This is Assad Ramzanali, the director of AI and technology policy at the Vanderbilt Policy Accelerator.
I don't think that's a bad instinct. I think governors and politicians who want to bring jobs to their states, that's a great thing. But in this particular case, it's worth looking at what exactly is the ROI? What exactly
ROI, return on investment, things like jobs and taxes. And the thing politicians love the most, the so-called multiplier effect, when one big employer pulls in others behind it, like when an auto plant comes to town.
The auto example is a good one, where you have thousands of jobs being created in an auto plant. You have the supply chain that springs up around it. And all of those people who work there also eat lunch. They also go to the grocery store. So you get all the kind of multiplier effects of the economy when people move in. With data centers, it's different.
Different because the jobs tend to vanish as soon as the concrete dries. There's a year, maybe two, of construction work.
But those jobs disappear in 12 or 18 months when the construction's done. The permanent jobs inside the data center, you're talking about a couple dozen each.
While data centers may sound futuristic, they're not exactly transformative. A data center is basically a giant storage closet for the internet.
That's not the same. You don't build a neighborhood for 30 people. You don't have new restaurants spring up because 30 people move to a certain area of the city. And so the multiplier effects are smaller for data centers.
And even the taxes they promise, Assad says those often evaporate too, especially in places like Missouri.
In the state of Missouri, if you create 10 jobs and invest $25 million, you are exempt from all state and local use and sales tax.
Tax breaks like that, Assad says, tilt the balance away from the community and toward big tech.
Look, I'm not anti-data center. I think that AI can have a lot of good, and I think we will need a lot of data centers to be competitive geopolitically. But if I was Amir, I'd say, how does this help or hurt your long-term objectives?
There were a lot of questions the people of St. Charles wanted answered. But Scott, the 20-year-old who started the petition, says no one even knew who they were negotiating with.
Right. So that would tie into the non-disclosure agreements.
Everyone involved, even the mayor, had to sign NDAs just to get in the room to hear about the data center. Tech companies argue the secrecy protects proprietary information and even national security. Critics say it just keeps the public in the dark. In St. Charles, that secrecy didn't quiet Scott and the opposition. It supercharged it.
That's something that, frankly, big tech companies are just going to have to swallow, is that they're going to need to share some more information with the communities they want to do business with, or else you're going to get a lot of pushback like they have been having.
And that pushback came fast. Yard signs appeared, flyers circulated, local press took notice. Protests followed.
Hey, hey, ho, ho, the data center's got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, the data center's.
City council meetings in St. Charles used to be sleepy affairs.
This is local government, right? So you don't have a big crowd.
But suddenly, there were crowds, dozens of people lining up to speak.
This non-disclosure agreements are unacceptable to us. We have the right to know what's going on in our community.
I do not want this over the waterhead where it might affect my children, my grandchildren, and everybody in here. You can't buy back your health.
I urge the City Council to reject outright any plans for this data center. Additionally, I want to say I'm very proud of my son, Scott, for being...
That's Scott's dad. And then came the vote. It was the height of summer, August 19th. Interest was so intense, the meeting had to be moved from City Hall to a convention center, just to fit everyone.
I'd like to call to order the regular session of the City Council of the City of St. Charles, Missouri, dated Tuesday, August 19th, 2025. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
The first person to step up to the mic that night was a lawyer for Project Cumulus.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, you are well aware we are not voting tonight on the application. That's because we have withdrawn the application because over the past we have had significant feedback from you as members of the council and from the folks that were just cheering behind me, asking questions about this project, about its impacts, and frankly, about the process to date. And process matters in this community. And I'm here to say the process was poor. We did a bad job at it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But after the proposal was withdrawn, people stayed. For 3 hours, they vented not just at the developers, but at the city leaders they felt had failed them. Trust had cracked open between citizens and City Hall and between progress and the price of it.
And I call on you to resign immediately so a real conservative can lead St. Charles County.
St. Charles isn't alone. As technologies like AI ramp up, so will demand for data centers. And across the country, communities are pushing back, forming networks, sharing tactics, learning how to read the fine print. No one betting on St. Charles would have predicted how this ended. A college student takes on big tech and wins? At least for now. The developers withdrew their proposal, but the fight isn't over just yet. The city council left the door open, saying they could come back in a year. Some residents worry the plan is to just wait them out, to let fatigue do the work that persuasion couldn't. But Scott had one last thing to say that night.
The people of St. Charles, Missouri have spoken. And even though they have withdrew their application for the time being, they plan on coming back. My message to them is St. Charles does not want or need your data center. When you come knocking on our city gates again, the good people of St. Charles, Missouri will be waiting.
This is Click Here. Here are some of the top tech stories making news this week. It's Tuesday, February 3rd. First, Google.
Google, accused of eavesdropping on folks, has now agreed to pay $68 million to settle a class action lawsuit.
The lawsuit claims Google's devices were recording private conversations, not because people asked them to, but because they were accidentally triggered by words mistaken for "Hey Google" or "Okay Google." Those recordings, according to the suit, were then shared with third parties for targeted advertising. Google denies any wrongdoing, but if the settlement is approved, it will cover anyone who bought a Google device after May 2016 who experienced these so-called ghost recordings. And it's not the first time. Last year, Google paid the state of Texas $1.4 billion to settle claims over data privacy violations. Once again, convenience comes with a cost, and that cost may be surveillance. Next, a cyber attack in Europe.
A major cyber attack that could have left 500,000 people without power in Poland.
In December, the Russian hacking group Sandworm targeted Poland's power grid. Not the massive transmission hubs, but dozens of smaller distributed energy facilities, renewables, combined heat and power plants, kinds of systems that rely on remote connectivity and often receive far less cybersecurity investment. Poland's lights stayed on, but hackers accessed operational systems and permanently disabled equipment at several sites. Researchers say the attack signals a shift. As energy systems become more distributed, they also become more exposed. And now, more clearly than before, they have become legitimate targets.
Some social media platforms like Meta have started blocking links to ICE List, citing policies around sharing personal information.
Meta has started blocking links to a site called ICE List, a crowdsourced page that claims to document the names of Department of Homeland Security employees, along with reports of immigration raids, sightings, and vehicles. The volunteers behind the site say they're simply holding federal agents accountable. Meta says the site violates its policies on sharing personal information. But the creator of ICE List says links to the page circulated on Meta's platforms for months without any issue. So why the change now? It may have something to do with what happened in mid-January, where the site claimed to upload a leaked list of 4,500 DHS names. It quickly went viral. All of this is unfolding as the Trump administration has been pressuring tech companies to remove tools that track ICE activity. The site is still online, just not on Facebook, Threads, or Instagram. And finally, something new from Apple.
This new feature limits the precise location from cellular networks.
Apple is rolling out a new feature that allows some iPhone users to limit how precisely cell networks can track their location. Every time your phone connects to a cell tower to make a call or to receive a notification, that connection can reveal exactly where you are. With this new feature turned on, cell carriers will only be able to see your general neighborhood. The change won't affect emergency services or app-based location sharing, and for now, it's limited to certain models in certain places. As law enforcement increasingly relies on cell carrier data to track people's movements, and as hackers continue to target that data, this move could make one thing harder to do: pinpoint exactly where someone is. Click Here is a production of Recorded Future News and PRX. Today's show was written and produced by Megan Dietrich, Sean Powers, Erica Gaida, Zach Hirsch, and Casey Georgie. It was edited by Karen Duffin and Sarah Quevedo, and fact-checked by Darren Ankrum. Original music is by Ben Livingston, with additional music from Blue Dot Sessions. Our staff writer is Lucas Riley, our illustrator is Megan Goff, and our sound designers and engineers are Jake Cook and Jesse Neiswanger. Find us on X or Facebook at Click Here Show, or leave us a voice message at 661-5CH-TALK. Sometimes we'll turn those moments into reporting, sometimes into a conversation, and sometimes into a future story you'll hear on this show. I'm Dina Temple-Raston, and thanks for listening.